So anyway, I'm going to get started. My name is Randy Johnson. I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to dive right in to the topic at hand, which is one of my favorite topics, lease administration. I don't know how that's possible that that's one of my favorite topics, but sure enough, it is. So let me get started with sharing screen 2. Excellent. So here we are, session number 10710. We're here to talk about PeopleSoft Lease Administration. So this is not a new topic, but it may be to you. So the point I would make is it's never too late to be compliant. Hopefully you are compliant with whatever the system is that you are using. Or if you're using PeopleSoft, just want to learn a little bit more about what we have to offer. That would be outstanding. I did in the meeting add some polls. I'm not sure if anybody took an opportunity to vote on the polls, but I did put polls out there. Just wondering if you are planning on implementing this module, if you already have, and whether or not you are subject to IFRS or GASB 87, IFRS 16 that is, or ASC 842. The fourth option in the poll was you don't know. Curious how many people would answer that. So if you care to get out to the poll and take that, that would give us a little bit of information on who our participants were and coming in, and who was interested in learning more about lease administration. It is an anonymous poll, so don't feel like you're going to get inundated with sales solicitations by answering the poll. All right, so let's go through the agenda very briefly. Going to do some introductions. I'll give you the commercial about SpearMC, and then we'll dive into lease administration, how it really is effective for every industry out there. I did take a look at a number of names that had pre-registered for this, and it appeared to be pretty heavily slanted towards public sector, which is good because we are going to have a section of the light product demonstration on ASC 842, and then we'll dive into GASB 87 and the differences there. So hopefully we can spend most of our time talking about the product and how it serves every industry. This is me, younger version of me. That's my real cell phone number. If you want to, we're getting the file is attached out in the Pathable site here under files. You got my number, give me a call. That's my real email. Shoot me an email and we can connect if you choose. Same deal goes for Sanjay. Sanjay is one of the design geniuses behind lease administration and our solution that we built to bridge a bit of a gap with GASB. And Sanjay is asset. Well, I don't even want to pigeonhole him. Sanjay, maybe I'll let you say hi to the crowd since you've got a live mic.
Hi, everyone. This is Sanjay, and I think what Randy is alluding to is, of course, we built the GASB 87 solution. Besides that, I was part of PeopleSoft product development, product architecture team many years ago, and part of the asset lifecycle management suites product architecture, including maintenance management and lease admin. Of course, there was a newer products release and release 8.9, but worked in product dev for a while and as a product architect, designing a number of the financial solutions. And with that, Randy, I'm going to hand it back to you, unless there's something.
Thank you. Yeah, Sanjay was a part of PeopleSoft and the development team and taught me something I didn't know, and that's the test users that are out in the demo environment. Their last names are all individuals that worked at PeopleSoft, changed their first names to protect the innocent, but I found his doppelganger out there in the demo environment. It's a lot of fun. in case you're interested in any of the 17 presentations that SpearMC is doing during the Reconnect week, these are the listings. I happen to be competing head-to-head right now with my colleague Cameron McClurg. He is talking about Oracle guided learning. And I toyed with the idea of not even displaying this for fear that you would all leave my session and join his. However, let me point out, he's also next Thursday, or this coming Thursday, doing a full tool demonstration. So if you really feel like you wanted to see that OGL presentation, one, it's recorded. Two, he's got another demo coming up. So don't feel like you've got to rush out of my session to catch his. Anyway, we are thrilled to be so heavily represented and just excited about the Reconnect conference being virtual and so much attendance out there. It's been spectacular. Here's SpearMC. Take a picture. That's where we are. We've got offices in every continental US time zone with clients in other parts of the world as well. We're very excited about being recognized 2 years in a row now by Gartner for our expertise in PeopleSoft, right? So they understand our expertise in PeopleSoft and our ability to migrate PeopleSoft customers onto Oracle Cloud Infrastructure for basically IaaS or platform as a service, along with some managed services. And we're the only PeopleSoft partner that made this designation. We've recently gotten SOC 2 Type 2 certification. This is, I think, what used to be called SAS 70. These are the audits that we go through to prove that we have internal controls in place so that if we are doing things like managing your systems offline, we've got the controls in place that you can rely on. Very excited about that. Just a high level on the industries that we primarily serve. And I'm going to go to this next slide and you'll understand why. So if you look at the smack dab middle of the screen, we focus on PeopleSoft and we continue to do that. We've been all in on PeopleSoft for the last few years. While many of our esteemed larger competitors have moved away and really focused on cloud, our focus continues to be on the PeopleSoft ecosystem and things that extend from it. And so that is why we focus on these industries, because these industries are the industries that really adopted the PeopleSoft platform, service level industries that seem to prefer the PeopleSoft product line over Oracle EBS or SAP, and now the cloud offerings that are out there. So if you get nothing out of my presentation more than SpearMC equals PeopleSoft, then I'll be happy. What do we do? All kinds of things. We do full implementation services, but our managed services practice is the one that's been growing. This is where we can perform simple things like just testing for you. Testing as a service. And we use our automated test library through PTF, make them work in your environment, and then execute those rounds of testing so that you can more easily stay current with the images that are being released. Infrastructure hosting, technical support, functional support. These are our key growth areas as organizations are having turnover. They're losing their internal support staff and finding it harder and harder to recruit and maintain that staff. So we're filling that void. All right, we talked about, that's it. That's the sales pitch on SpearMC. I got through it in record time, at least for me. Let's talk about PeopleSoft Lease Administration and what it addresses in the accounting basis comparison between ASC 842, IFRS 16, and GASB 87. Okay, as you can see, there's a number of factors that are in common. In fact, I'm unbelievably surprised at how well the three organizations kind of got together and gave similar guidance across the board. There are some differences in operating leases and most notably receivable leases. What you can see and what we'll show you when Sanjay starts sharing his screen is it's the GASB requirements that are different on the receivable side. So if you are the lessor and you are ASC 842 or IFRS 16, you're good. If you are a lessor and you're GASB 87, rules changed in your accounting and you have treatment that is different than the other two accounting bases. And there's some other differences on sort of what's applicable on financing versus operating leases. All of this that are checked are handled by PeopleSoft out of the box, except these two. PeopleSoft and Oracle chose not to address the receivable side for GASB 87. I'm happy to say there's a solution, and that's why we're having a presentation. SpearMC worked with several of our customers, and we built a bolt-on solution to address that gap. The gaps, by the way, I can't believe how many times I spelled the word compliant complaint. Maybe that says something about me, but spell check didn't catch it for me. PeopleSoft is fully compliant for payables leases, no matter what your accounting basis. Just be satisfied with that statement. It is not compliant on receivables leases for GASB. Okay, this is where the revenue gets amortized. Okay, and there is no Oracle delivered solution as of this presentation, not a training session. We built a solution, and that's what you're going to see Sanjay demo live here in just a minute. Probably as soon as I can stop talking, we'll let him start sharing. He's also going to show compliance with ASC 842. We'll talk about IFRS 16. I've got screenshots, very basic. It's not a setup guide, but design considerations when you are rolling out your lease administration module for the first time. And those are coming here. So we'll talk about the highest level installation options, your business units, and then drill into some of the details. This is definitely not intended to supplement a training for your implementation team, but let's give it a high flyover here. Always want to start with installation options. Actually, you want to start on the product side and make sure if you have acquired the lease administration module that you flag that as an installed application. Then we can come in and update the lease administration. And this is where you say we are going to the compliance for whichever accounting basis we are. And here is the transition date. Okay, very important date here. This is sort of the date where the line is drawn in the sand. Accounting entries on or after this date are going to be compliant with the new regulations. Okay, so this is you do it once. Very careful on how we want to make sure that we flag that. Of course, it gets done several times in your test environments. It gets done one final time when you go live. Installation options. So one of the keys with lease administration is that it is very tightly integrated with asset management. In fact, like the expenses module, you don't actually set up a standalone business unit for lease administration. You associate it with an asset management business unit. Okay, so every lease administration business unit has to have an asset management business unit. And then you will be able to on your installation options. There's going to be settings that you need to update because the installation or the flagging of the lease admin module being in place will have new items that you have to select. All right. This is you've got to map your lease admin business unit to a asset management business unit, and then a contracts and AP business unit as well. here is where we're going to assume, the system assumes if you don't indicate your IFRS or GASB, that you're ASC 842. That's the assumption it makes going in. So if you are IFRS or GASB, you would select the appropriate accounting basis here in the business unit setup. And so if you happen to have business units, some that are IFRS and others that are ASC 842, well, then you would only select those appropriate for the business unit itself. And then on your business unit books and your definitions, don't forget, there's going to be a lease book now. And so you're going to have to go out there and make sure you update that. You may need to add books to the business unit. We found that most of our customers, a lot of the existing books are adequate. We use those, but from time to time, we have found that we've needed to create new ones to accommodate specific scenarios. Online reporting features and so forth. These are all just the setup keys that you go through to make your lease administration business unit adhere to the requirements that essentially are dictated to you, but yours may be in greater detail from a reporting perspective. There are going to be accounting entry templates that you will need to maintain for lease expense, lease payable, and the various transaction types that fall into the new regulations and rules. And so we've got essentially a list of all of the types that you're going to need, whether you're IFRS 16, GASB 87, or ASC 42. Let's see. On the depreciation profiles, GASB 87, IFRS ASC 42, depreciable for finance. FASB 842, I should say ASC 842, operating lease should be none. All right, specific dates. I'm not going to read this slide like I've read every slide until now. So you understand the commencement date, super critical date. You've got your accounting dates, your date the lease is signed, terminated, and when it's placed in service like an asset, right? Just like an asset. But that commencement date, that first date where you're going to start treating your accounting entries. Technically, that date is in the past for all three. Everyone should be having a compliance by now, whether you're doing it offline or in PeopleSoft. We are all now bound by these new accounting regulations. Every time you talk about a module, it has to be in the smack dab center of a flow diagram. Suffice it to say that your asset management system, your assets are truly the driving factor in lease administration. They're a one-for-one business unit setup, but we do, because it's a PeopleSoft integrated system, integrate with all of your other modules, including AP for the payment of your leases, or billing and AR if it is a revenue lease that you're generating where you are the lessor. Okay. And now I think I will pass it over to Sanjay, which means I stop sharing. Sanjay, you shall start. And while I'm doing that, I've got to find my mouse. I'm going to check the chat and see if there's anything out there. If you're using the chat here in the application, I'll be monitoring that. And I'll also chat I'll monitor the chat here in Zoom as well. Sanjay, the floor is yours. Sanjay, you may be on mute, sir.
Sorry, took me a while to unmute myself. I talk a lot, so don't think that was intentional. So what I'm going to cover, and just I think Randy did a pretty awesome job of covering up all the various configurations. And for the benefit of the group, again, the assumption over here is a lot of people may be seeing lease admin for the first time or may have already seen lease admin, but what I plan to do is go straight into the transaction side. As Randy alluded to earlier, there will be, I'm going to cover some transactions from a payables lease perspective. And we have configured two business units, one for ASC 842 and one for GASB 87. And again, the point that I'm highlighting here is the one where Randy mentioned that you can do both ASC 842 and GASB 87. So what we are going to say, I'm going to show you first the payables lease section, which PeopleSoft has delivered as is. And the good thing is for the ASC 842, the GASB 87 and ASC 842 both work pretty similar. With that context, right, I'm going to go into this one lease that we have created, lease 469. I typically am very interactive, so I like to have feedback, but I know this session is not about that. So from a leasing perspective, I think Randy talked about some key dates that are important for the creation of a lease. And just FYI, PeopleSoft also does deliver Excel to CI uploads, both for payables and receivables leases. What I'm showing you is a lease that's already created. Now, a typical status when a lease is first created is pending, and it can go to, it can be activated. There can be a different person creating the lease and another different person activating the lease. That's the difference between a lease administrator and portfolio manager. I'm not going to explain every attribute. I'm just kind of covering the key things out here. As Randy illustrated in the diagram, a lease creates an asset, or you can use an existing asset. But typically for payables leases or the lessee leases, a lot of times the clients will end up deciding that they will create new assets for every one of the lessee leases. So in this scenario, we have created this asset from this lease. Now, this is the financing lease, even though it's an ASC 842 configuration out here. And on the lease, some of the key things, as you know, as we keep talking about, both the modules asset management and lease admin are tied to the hip. So keeping that in mind, what is an accounting date is always a key factor, because this lease actually was created just this morning from a perspective of for this demo. So as you can see, it's a very recent lease. I just don't know what time zone this is in. So having said that, within the lease itself, on the financial terms, again, for people who are ASC 842 or GASB 87, it's very important whether the lease is paid in arrears or advance, that is at the beginning of the month or the end of the month. That derives a lot of the accounting. What you see over here on the preview accounting schedule is when a lease is created. PeopleSoft pretty much at that point itself computes your obligation reduction and your interest expense on for every month. And also, what I'm not going to talk about too much is the escalations, where PeopleSoft offers both step-based escalation or the price index-based escalations. So which is called as index-based escalations, right? Or in this scenario, there is a lease with none of those. Also, the other things that are possible on a lease are the different types of payments, which I can show you for a pending lease, but you can have security deposits, you can have operating expenses. PeopleSoft does offer a great OpEx audit function also. some of these other tabs, because they're not financially impacting, will not cover them in too much detail, because a lot of the clients right now are trying to implement the accounting standards. So you can have all your lease clauses in your, what is significant is of course the options, especially if you have a renewal option, which is most likely going to exercise. Those kind of attribute selection you can do with your options over here on the lease. And then if an option is marked as reasonably certain, then it is taken into account for your further leasing computations for your obligation. Or one of the things I wanted to show you on the summary page up front is when you create a lease, at that time itself, PeopleSoft shows you what's your total payments due. At the same time, it gives you your ROU or right of use asset cost. I think GASB customers like to call it right to use or RTU. And what is the current present value of your payments. So you do see a summarized view of it at any point of time. I'm not, just briefly, since we are here, there's the capability to add notes. You can store the lease agreements also as attachments. You can have multiple contacts for a lease. It could be your broker, it could be just the supplier contact, or people within the real estate organization or equipment organization for the leases. And it also leverages a supplementary data feature out here where you can have your own attributes. So just trying to be time sensitive. So I'm going to jump from here into the next aspect of the lease. So once the lease is created and activated, the next piece of it that we are going to look at, what you have to do is run the transaction generator process, which will make the transactions ready for payments. But what I'm going to do from here is go into the actual payment transactions. So, well, right during a demo is when your transactions don't show up, but I'm not going to spend too much energy on showing that. I'm just going to jump into the next piece. Once your transactions are generated over here, right? For this particular lease, it will show you over here a list of all the transactions that are eligible to be paid. And you can choose whether you want to put them on hold, or if you put something on hold, unhold it. And you can approve them for payables, right? Which is basically saying that it can go and create your voucher. Now, again, an important thing out here to note is that this is not a mandatory step. It's not that you have to go and approve all your 1,000 leases and every one of the payments. You can choose whether you want to enable this or enable this as in you want a forced approval, or you just want every transaction that, because the lease is already pre-approved, it has gone through its validations and checkings before it was activated. These transactions that are generated for AP can be created as pre-approved. Once the transactions are generated, you can always go into AP and view the transactions out there. I do have the AP voucher also out here created, and I'm hoping this time it's not going to make me look as bad as it made me look last time when I was trying to pull up the transactions. So I'm going to just say greater than or equal to. So we do have a lot of transactions. I'm just going to show you this last transaction that was created for that lease that we just talked about. And again, this is where you push the transactions, you push it from the transaction generator. This goes through the voucher build process, and the voucher is created out here. Now, this was a $45,000 a month lease, for Emma Steiner. And the information about the lease is also visible on this. So if you remember, I was looking at lease 469. It's also visible on the voucher as to which lease that you were looking at. I'm going to pause here for a second. Um, I know this is not like an interactive, so I won't ask you if you have any questions. But this is the processing all the way from creating a lease to vouchers. There's other processing that happens because you're creating the amortization. There is the lease accounting entries that also need to be generated, right? And those lease accounting entries that are created, they are pushed through asset management, and asset management creates the add entries and the add entries and the monthly amortization entries, similar to how we run the depreciation close process in asset management. From here, I'm going to jump into this, the receivables lease. And what I'm going to show you now is some of the things that PeopleSoft does not do as delivered, but what we have built as a bolt-on. So again, if you noticed, I was entering the first set of transactions on business unit year 001, which is regular, which was the ASC 842. The receivables lease, I put it on a different business unit because PeopleSoft, again, as I'll just remind, is as delivered does not do the GASB 87 piece, right? So having said this, I'm going to show this this lease 469, which is for the GASB demo that we created. This has been on an equipment, right? And the financial terms on this is basically a regular monthly $62,000. Now, again, on this one, if you notice, you don't see any of those obligation similar, the deferred income side of it on the receivables lease, because PeopleSoft has not done this. And we decided that we did not want to touch any of the PeopleSoft delivered pages. So we kept these pages as is, and we built our own GASB pages where you can go and look at this information. This way, as pumps are delivered, you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about whether your information has changed, right? So with that being said, I'm going to go, once you create a receivables lease, what we have built is this 2 pages that you see are the 2 GASB bolt-on pages, which were built for inquiring or reviewing information. And besides that, there are 2 batch processes. One is a straight line process, similar to the PeopleSoft delivered straight line process, but that takes into account the GASB accounting. And we have an accounting process that creates the accounting data similar to the asset accounting entry process, or it's a combination of the asset accounting entry process and the depreciation close process, where it does the monthly transactions also. So I'm going to start by going into the GASB straight line entry page for the same lease. So on this page, what you see is the GASB specific accounting, the GASB specific distribution types that you need to enter for a GASB lease. What we also account for is whether it has to be reported under GASB. If not, one of the GASB requirements is for receivables leases to document a reason if it was not GASB eligible. Now this lease is already activated, so I can't associate a GASB exempt reason on this. Again, the lease payment type of advance or arrears is significant. I'm again going to remind everyone, we could have modified the PeopleSoft delivered pages and accounted for these fields, but we just like they are there for payables leases, but we built it separate so that we don't have to worry about the PeopleSoft delivered pumps that come across in the future and the implicit interest rates. Now, similar to how you saw the preview payment schedule for the payables lease. This is the previous, when we said to generate the schedules after entering the account numbers. What we see is the schedules being generated along with the interest amount and your obligation reduction or your amount over there. Now, what the generated portion out here means is this transactions have now also been accounted for. Okay, so I'm going to show you that next, and by going into the accounting page. So on the GASB lease accounting view page, we'll again pull up the same lease. And this shows the accounting created for this lease on a monthly basis. Now what I'm going to just do is sort this by monetary amount, because we created this lease as of 1/1/22 and we did it for this morning, as of this morning. So we kind of, that's why we have generated transactions all the way to the current month. That's why you see like about 10 lines for every one of the transactions, whether it's lease interest or deferred income or lease revenue. I hope I was not too fast in this whole process, but this is the bolt-on piece. Again, in the demo, I do not want to focus on the transaction, on the processing side of it. So I did not show any of the batch processes. But once the journals are generated, you will see the journal ID and journal date, just like as in any other PeopleSoft process. I know we still have some time left. So I don't know, I'm going to ask Randy. Randy, do you want me to show something else? And maybe I should have asked you in between, should I slow down my pace?
Okay, I was waiting. I finally, happily see one question out there. Is the interest for the receivable lease calculated but not visible on the payment schedule of the lease? Or the interest is not calculated, recorded at all? That was a question from D. Stroud.
So can you please repeat? I'm sorry.
I will try. Is the interest for the receivable lease calculated but not visible on the payment schedule of the lease? Or is the interest is not calculated, recorded at all?
So on the lease creation page, it's not visible at all because PeopleSoft does not do that processing. So that's the reason why we built this page, additional page, where you can go in and generate the schedule. So just going back to this page, again, I hope I answered the question, but on the PeopleSoft delivered page, it's not, we thought about adding it over there, like building a link over there so that people can view it. But the main reason why we moved away from that was because then it became a customization to a delivered page, and we kept it over here. If a client is interested, there can be a link still that can be done on that page, on the PeopleSoft delivered page, that will take you to this page out here.
Dee, did that answer your question? We'll wait for her to respond in a chat. Right. Are there any more questions out there? If so, out on the Pathwell site, you can use the chat. I've also got the chat window from Zoom open. Oh, I got it. I didn't know we could do this. This is good. Apparently, you can take yourself off mute to ask a question.
Hey, Randy. Can I go ahead with the question?
Please.
Sure. Okay. By the way, thanks for this presentation. It's great. And one thing I wanted to, I'm from Ascension. We at Ascension implemented lease management both the accounts payables leases as well as the receivables leases. One thing that struck me as part of the introduction is we don't need to set up separate LABUs. The asset management BUs can be accessed to do the transactions or create transactions on the LABUs. Can you please expand on that? And will those AMBUs be accessible on these LA pages?
Ramu, thanks for the question. And let me see if I understand. Did you license lease administration, or are you using what's known as the limited use license, right? Which gives you access to some functionality?
We are using, we have a license. We are licensed for lease administration. Yep.
Yeah. And are you saying you did not set up?
We have to.
Yes,
we did set up, but
yeah.
I thought as part of the introduction, you kind of mentioned that it works closely with AM and we don't need to set up separate LABUs.
No, I didn't mean to say that. What I meant to say is you can't set up a standalone lease administration BU
without an AMB. Right. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
So I probably should have let Sanjay read that slide, because the intention was they're so tightly integrated. You must first have an AMBU before you can set up its twin on lease administration.
Gotcha. Perfect. And on the GASB bolt-on you've built in. So the primary, I've seen two different pages. One of them is the purpose to showcase the schedules of what has been generated so far in terms of revenue and what is to be accrued in the future. Is that the purpose of one of the pages?
So this particular, I think my screen is not shared. So the one
we
page
could see your screen
like
right now. I don't know.
Yeah, you're still sharing, Sanjay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this page works as the preview payment schedule, like similar to preview payment schedule. We click the generate schedules and it generates the schedule. So yes, you can see the future data. So what you see as pending, right? So similar to your payables lease page, you can see the pending transactions, which will be as and when you process this transaction in the upcoming month. In November, it will go to the next stage of it. So it's the past, present, and future. I mean, just to simply put it out there.
So is the generated, is that the is it generated because the payment has been recorded or the invoice has gone to the customer?
So this, sorry, that's a very good question. This is marked as generated because the accounting has been generated for this.
Okay, and not necessarily the payment has been recorded.
Right, not necessarily.
Not necessarily the payment has been recorded. I think that part is still taken care of within the PeopleSoft page itself. So if I was to go back to the receivables lease, actually I'll have to go to the transaction generator. I don't remember if I ran the transaction generator for this, but I'm going to really quickly navigate to it. Okay. That was one of the things that I had not saved in my favorites. So again, my bad, but I quickly show
Ramu, while we're navigating, which accounting basis are you?
We are on AS 842 right now,
42.
Randall. Yep. And that's what we are. When we initially implemented, we were not on AS 842, but we had to convert all the leases eventually. So.
So we did not run the process for this one, but it would be over here. The status over here is if it has been generated for billing or not. Okay. So I think I have not given myself enough access to be able to view the transactions over here. and I'm not going to go about doing it now, but yeah, this is where you would see it on the status over here would show whether it's been sent to billing or not.
Thanks, Randall, and thanks, Sanjay. This is
You're
very
welcome.
helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we're still looking for additional questions, and now that you can take yourself off mute, fire away.
This is Dee. I think you answered the question about the bolt-on, but say like you generate the schedules and then it creates the payment schedule. Otherwise, that interest is not calculated to
On
go
the
to the
rec-
general ledger.
For the receivables lease,
Correct. That straight line bolt-on that you were showing.
yeah, otherwise it's not calculated. So the PeopleSoft delivered does not do that computation. So that part is taken care of by our bolt-on.
Okay, so you like have like an app engine or something that does that calculation and then you display it, something like
Correct.
that. Okay.
I
All
mean,
right, thank you.
sounds that simple, but I'm not going to oversimplify the work that Sanjay did. It's.
No,
I'm sure I oversimplified it,
I
but I didn't want to get too technical.
No, I think of it as the opposite of an amortization of a payables lease, but I'm often corrected, and it's not quite that.
it is not quite that. I will confirm that, Randy. It is a little complex than that, but on a call, I make it sound very simple.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I always appreciate it when people are brave enough to take themselves off mute. Who else has questions? Oh, we're very shy today. Well, I'm not seeing anything new in the chat. Doesn't look like anyone is jumping at the opportunity to take themselves off mute. We've got our polls out there. I'd love to find out. They're just two. It's super quick. Go out there, give us your answers, and thanks for joining. In the chat, you'll find that we've got a link to the session evaluation form. I'd love to get your evaluation, love to get your poll results. The presentation documents are out on the files, so go grab that, grab a cup of coffee, and maybe I'll see you over at my next session, which is mobile expenses, which is presented with our partner, Hackensack Meridian Health. Plenty of great sessions going on today, so I hope you all take advantage and take care. Thank you.